Just having finished that video on the various states of consciousness, I come upon a communal bench, on the footpath, and very often I see this old man sitting there, and he has an electric bike, and he's always wrapped up in lots of clothes, and he wears his helmet, and he sits on this bench and he smokes a cigarette. And I've walked past him at least 10 times, and I've looked at him, and I've never ever had my gaze returned. He just... What do you want? Dead. Absolutely dead. His face is grey, his eyes are dull. I can't help thinking that he's in a very, very unfortunate state of consciousness. Depression. And then I think to myself, well, if you're so depressed, why do you wear a helmet? Obviously you value life, but you don't want to engage with anybody. You don't even want to glance up to see who's walking by. You're not interested in the world. And he just stares into emptiness, getting his fix of nicotine. And so it seems to me that due to his depression, he's just got to get out of the house at some stage in the day. He gets on his electric bike and he travels X amount of distance, which I've no idea. He stops off, pit stop to smoke a fag. He stares into the abyss, and then he continues with his life. And so when we look at consciousness, and I know many of you speak in the comments how you've been depressed for many years, and you suffer many varieties of mental issues of varying sorts. And we've all known many people, even if we don't suffer from them ourselves, which have had these things and live with them on a daily basis, and they try all different sorts of homeopathy, they try pharmaceuticals, SSRIs, and any number of things like that, with varying degrees of respite. And some people don't get respite from anything really. They can maybe get into a sort of stupor where they don't feel anything, and I think maybe that's what he was experiencing. Probably he's on a medication, maybe it's like Prozac, whereby it's just numbed his brain so he doesn't feel anything. And that's better than, feeling terror on a constant basis. And so how unfortunate. And, you got to feel for these people. I do, because in my life, I have suffered from bouts of depression. And I didn't consider them really to be depressed at the time. That was weird. Because my 7 years, Dark Night of the Soul, I guess I was just numb. I never had any levels of suffering or anxiety. I was just lethargic and disinterested. And all I wanted to do was read. I just seemed to have a task to do. I wanted reclusion, and I needed to absorb an enormous amount of information. And I did that solidly every single day for 10-12 hours a day, never a single break, and I've continued to do it, only not so intensely for the next 7 years, so totally 14 now. But I'm still reclusive, really. I don't go out and I don't mix with anybody. I've got more life in me now. I enjoy going to the gym and cycling, whereas I never used to enjoy those things. I just did them because I felt that I needed to keep, doing what I've always done, really, to keep healthy whilst I was riding through this numbness I felt about life. But that was my 7 years of Dark Night of the Soul, and then lesser for the past 7 years. But prior to that, then I had I think 1 year whilst I was living in Bulgaria, and then another year whilst I was living in Ghana, Western Africa. And these bouts of depression came about when my spirit was stifled. I was contained because I was a prisoner, because I had invested in property in these countries and I couldn't leave. And the whole country was flat, it was dead. I was almost broke, and everybody that I'd ever engaged with had gone. The times had changed and I was left there, like the remaining rat on a sinking ship, because I was, I only had like one leg and I couldn't swim or something like that. I couldn't leave because I was bound to my property. I couldn't afford to live anywhere else. I had to stay in my property whilst I was waiting to try to sell it, and of course I had to be there. But when the bottom fell out, the property market, very, very few people were interested. And I went into a form of depression whereby I just used to walk every single day. I used to walk. And I just got through it in the end. But I never considered any medication, or I never became, an alcoholic, or I never engaged in anything like that to take respite. I just kind of got my respite from reading. Engaging myself in incredible things, and I think someone in the comments was saying something like they can get respite from maybe reading or engaging in something like that, and then they never mentioned meditation. They mentioned things distracting them away from their hell, but never mentioned meditation. Maybe try meditation, because I will vouch for that. It purifies the mind. It enables you to get outside of the repetition of thoughts. It will kill the thoughts over time. And so now I am free of thoughts. There have been times in my life when I've been heavily compromised, and of course you get the internal dialogue, and it never ends. There's always something which is fucking with you, and you go over and over scenarios, and then you invent a million other scenarios about this, that and the other, and then you catch yourself and you go, what the fuck are you doing? That never even happened, it's never even going to happen. Why don't you just concentrate on what actually did happen and try to solve that? But then there's too many possibilities, and in the end you go, well, you'll never know the mind of somebody. Why did someone do this to you? Why did they do that? It seemed like it's evil. Could it really be evil, or could they just not know what they were doing? There's a whole billion things to do. Particularly people, when you get involved with narcissists. If any of you have ever been involved with a narcissist, like I got deeply involved with, they fuck with your head in a very evil way, let me tell you. And that was a major lesson in my life, and I'm going to be writing a book about that one day. But if any of you know what I'm speaking about, then don't be asking me to elaborate on what I'm saying now in the comments, because I'm not ready for that. And I don't want to bring on negative energy onto the channel. There's a whole lot to say about that, and it gets very, very deep and evil. And so there are traits of the human being which are purposely manipulative, wanting to cause the deepest of stress in people. They want to exercise control, and they really get off on that. And lots of you are aware of the narcissists which run the world, and politicians and things like that. But if you can imagine it in a partner, all the sneaky, surreptitious, evil things they do, and the gaslighting. The gaslighting is the worst thing anyone could ever do to a human being. When they blatantly do things and then deny it and tell you that you must be going mad. It's pure fucking evil. And so maybe that might answer one or two of your questions out there. But again, don't be mentioning it in the comments, because I won't be uploading them. Because then everybody, what's all this about? What's all that about? When the time's right, then it'll all be revealed.